and thank you for joining me for the hidden traumas of death, grief, and loss. My name is Phaedra Antioco, and I'm an occupational therapist and a somatic experiencing practitioner, and I specialize in helping people overcome both physical and emotional pain. And it started when I had a car accident 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, and this was me. I woke up from a coma and my world had changed, and I grieve the loss of me, the whole spine of me, the spine that wasn't crushed, my broken leg. I miss my old leg, and that can be quite a grief process if you are struggling with an illness, a thyroid condition, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a marriage, a loss of a loved one due to a horrible illness. And that's what we're uncovering here, because I do focus on pain. And you might be saying, why are you working with trauma, Phaedra? Well, I had a car accident. I woke up from a coma, completely busted up. And it wasn't until a couple of months later, when I did the work that I now provide people with, that I uncovered the body memory, the tissue memory of my car accident. And there was so much emotional hurt under there and so much fear that literally was trapped inside my body. And that happens with people. When I work with people, whether in person in my office, I do intensives, people fly here, and just had someone wonderful person from Canada come yesterday, and we had to really dig deep. And what happens is your body is a story. It tells a story. It tells the story of your life, the falls you've had, the injuries you've had, the car accidents, the losses, and they come up when we're doing our work together. And that's what we're going to be releasing in the Hidden Traumas small group that we're going to be starting up after the Hidden Traumas series. And I tell you all the time, when you stop the busy, when you stop running around doing too much or working too much or shopping too much or all those unhealthy addictions to avoid being in our bodies, we really start to feel. And that's the type of work I do. Is I will sometimes interrupt you, pause you, stop, hey, let's capitalize on that. Because once we pause, stop, go into our bodies, the emotions come up. Just yesterday, I had somebody who was dealing with a car accident, who they broke their patella on their knee, gone to chiropractors, gone to physical therapists. They're all great practitioners, but you've got to look at, if you've had a car accident and you're in pain, you have to look at the grief around that. You have to look at the traumas. You have to look at how you were hurt. And again, you have to experience my work to really get a feel for it and know what I'm talking about. But I've got my hands on her knee. Again, it's bruised. 4 months later, she's still in pain and can't walk. Her life has just been completely stopped. And I paused and I renegotiated the car accident with her. And I had her go in and experience that fear and experience that anger that he was underinsured and she uses her car for work and she can't get there, and the face turned red. The emotions came up, but I had to give her permission to feel. And when you feel, that's when you start healing. And oftentimes we're taught to stuff our emotions, and especially with grief. Grief is the gift that keeps on giving. And I don't have huge, close personal experiences. I have one. And to many people, they might say, oh, that's not a big deal. But I lost my dog. I lost my dog of 12 years. She was my kid. She slept in the bed with me every night. I walk home in my house and she was there to greet me. And I'll never forget what happened. It was a coupled event. So there are these things that are coupled events. And when you have a loss, and we'll be talking more about death and a loss of a loved one through death tonight, but there's also so many losses. And I'd love to hear from you. If you wouldn't mind right now, please, a few of you share what your losses have been. This comes out when I'm working with people and we're processing what's happening inside their nervous system, in their body. It's like the fascial system is a highway, a hologram. I can't tell you, just some amazing things happen. We have lots of beliefs, limiting beliefs. Sometimes our thoughts can make us clench. And so I really want to help you today. Just let's talk about grief. Let's talk about the loss. Because what happened with my dog dying my brain was not, it was like I was in shock because it was a very traumatic death. She had nasal cancer, and I'll just be pretty detailed here, but the tumor, and again, she was bleeding from her nose. I didn't know. I was hiking with her. I thought, we're in the desert, maybe she got a thorn up her nose or split something up there. And I waited because it was very expensive, all the tests to do. And I'm glad I waited because I kept her with me longer. But I went to the vet school, had the best care, and they did a nasal scope. I had an internal medicine doctor for my dog, and it turns out she had nasal cancer so bad that it went into her brain and ate through the bone. And the doctor just did me a favor. He thought he removed the tumor. And I'm driving home, and just like, I was sitting in the waiting room. Okay, let's just start with that trauma. I'm there, I'm by myself, and you're just waiting for the news. And I'm sure many of you in your life have experienced this, whether it's from, a diagnosis of cancer or diagnosis of an illness. See, this is proof that it's still there. And I'm sitting by myself, and he gives me the news, and she's gone. She's still there, but I only had about a week left of her. And see, this is amazing that this was 3.5 years ago, and it's still coming up. So this is like live experience of trauma still living in the body. But I took her home, and she started getting neurologic. She couldn't walk, all of that, and she sneezed, and there was blood everywhere around my house. Talk about trauma. It was pretty traumatic. So I still find drops of blood from that. And I had to heal, and I couldn't sleep for like weeks. So I went to the doctor and I said, give me Xanax. I know Xanax works. Okay. And that would only keep me asleep for about 4 hours. Then I said, give me Ativan, because that'll be a 6-hour life. Well, I got hooked in like 3 weeks. I got hooked on these pills to help me sleep. And it was a long process, a brutal process to overcome it. But that's how bad grief could be in your life. And I'm blessed that I've lost my grandparents, but I haven't lost someone that was every day in my life, a loved one, a spouse, a partner that I've had. I haven't had to lose that. So let me look at for you guys, and let me see. Yeah, grieving the loss of my health. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and again, here's somebody who's talking about, still no forgiveness towards the person who hit my car in February, and I'm still stuck in the moment when I was hit. And that's the thing is, you think when you're having these car accidents, I'm dead, I'm dying, like you're facing fear of losing it all. And that's the thing that does get trapped in the body. So when I work with people, we pause and we go into that and we renegotiate the trauma. And that's what I did with the client yesterday. Is we got her back into the scene of the accident, and I got her to complete that fight, flight, or freeze response. And that's what happens in animals in nature. And there's a video Dr. Peter Levine, my mentor, shows where you've got a gazelle and a hyena, and the hyena gets the gazelle, and another animal comes and they're ready to fight. I think it was a leopard or something. And the gazelle had gotten caught by the hyena, and it froze, like the hyena thought it was dead. And then another predator animal comes, and the hyena leaves the gazelle, who's lying there frozen, and they're starting to fight, and the gazelle gets up and he goes away. So sometimes we do get caught in a state of freeze. So normal nervous system regulation is just staying within these lines here. It's like, I'm peaceful, I'm safe, and I'm calm. But sometimes we can just get overly activated, stuck on high, anxious, stress, fear, running for our lives, keep going, going, going. If you're the type of person that has to be busy all the time, you can't sit still, or you face yourself and it's too scary. Or maybe you do decide to sit still, like someone I met yesterday, and they said they fall asleep. That's your nervous system and how you're coping and regulating. Either we can be on too high, or we can be on freeze, too low. We get stuck on low, we're frozen, stubborn, we get shut down, depressed, and exhausted. So we have to work through the fight, flight, or freeze response. And with somatic experiencing, I do that with my clients, and we work and we connect very intimately. Connecting with another human is so important. And oftentimes when there is a loss, there is shame involved, there is guilt involved, maybe wanting to hide from everybody because you don't want to face the world. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, I've got that emotion cleared out of me. Where did that come from? Oh, I still can't get another dog because I'm just like the thought of the loss. It was pretty traumatic for me, but it was also coupled with an event. So maybe you had lost a loved one, there was a death, maybe you had a cancer diagnosis, maybe you were going through a divorce and you got hit with the diagnosis of cancer. These are coupled events. So if you look at an event that is a trigger for you and your emotions are high and you feel it and you think about this event, this loss, this grief that you've had, but it's like way stronger than anybody else's reaction, any typical person would be, I want you to consider what is happening with that. What happened in your life at the time of the diagnosis? Were you in the middle of getting a divorce? Were you in the middle of a breakup? Did you get fired from work and get into a car accident? You know, all of this is super important. Another huge trauma that people have is taking care of their older parents, their aging parents, and perhaps they have dementia. That is, you know, you lose, they're there, but it's like they're not there. Their soul leaves, you know? And that's what happened with my dog. I felt her in my arms as I had to make the decision. First of all, it took me like 3 hours to leave the house to go to the vet. Then I pulled up at the vet. I was 2.5 hours, 3 hours in the car. And then I walked in. I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I'll come in when I'm ready. And then I went into the room 3 hours later into the exam room at the vet hospital. And I said, I'll let you know when I'm ready for her to leave. And I held her in my arms. And I'm really amazing at feeling into the bodies. And I literally felt her soul leave. I felt her soul, like her from her feet, and it just like went out her head. It was like the most craziest experience, you know? So what other experiences have you had? Yeah, yesterday my psychologist told me I have PTSD from incidents that occurred long ago, death in my family, and trauma from narcissist ex-husband. And Kay, those are the things that we're going to be doing, and you might want to consider joining the small group. It's the Release Hidden Traumas group. It's $9.97. It's a 4-week intensive. There's going to be 4 people in a group with me. We're going to meet for 2 hours, and you each get a 30-minute session. We're going to start with a deep dive to kind of uncover the hidden traumas. That'll be a private one-on-one with me, and then we're going to work together and support each other, because this stuff, it rules. It comes up, and then, oh, I have PTSD and my back hurts. Well, the PTSD and the thoughts that you have make you clench. If you've been following me, our nervous system is king. It runs us. Our nerves, our brain, our cranial nerves, you know, they control our respiration, how we breathe, our digestion, you know, and our muscle tension. So when we're in fight or flight and we're ready to run and protect ourselves, you know, we're not necessarily present to all that's going around. We're just tunnel vision, running for our lives. And those are often the symptoms of PTSD. So you've got a stressed out nervous system. It's increasing your muscle tension. Your muscles get tight and they push the pressure of the bones together, and then they cause pain, compressing the nerves, the blood vessels, the lymph system. It's all related. So we've got to manage our lives and uncover these hidden traumas. And that's what makes me unique as a pain specialist, is I have to dig deep. I have to ask you questions. You know, emotions come up just about in most sessions that I do, because we do need to uncover them. And it's not that they might go away completely, but maybe we can lessen the sting of them. And again, I just cried, like, what just happened there? I was like, maybe it was just studying about death that kind of triggered me today, because it's just not a pretty topic. I was working on the graphic design and I'm seeing death, and the word death just makes me so again, here's someone, you know, grieving the loss of a relationship with an adult daughter that is non-responsive, and I feel like I have been going through the many stages and desire to get acceptance. Yes, it's grieving. It's all kinds of things where you might be trying to look for them on social media. We call it sleuthing, you know, and it's just this unsettledness. And maybe even if you've lost a loved one, I like to believe that they're still here in spirit, and there'll be a sign, whether it's, you know, maybe your daughter loves butterflies. Maybe there was something, absolutely, she loved butterflies, and you're having a day, and maybe you're sitting on a park bench and you're just so upset about that relationship, but this butterfly comes fluttering around you. If you can connect in that way, and just to know that you're safe. And we can't figure out, and we can't change any other person, but we can show forgiveness for ourselves and for them, and send them love, and even forgive yourself for whatever perhaps you might have done wrong. all those mistakes you might have made, really forgiving yourself. That's important. And I had another thought and it literally just jumped out of my brain. You can't change another person, and I understand her need to pull away. I've had that experience with my mother right now. And I can't change her. I can only change myself and how I respond, and I have to choose to protect myself. So if you can, send love, prayers, send her a gift, a book, something just to let her know you love her. And honestly, you are probably just as my mother was, doing the absolute best that she could do, given the traumas of what was happening in our lives at that time, right? Ah, great. Anyone else want to share as we get into the training here? Yeah. Anyone have loss of a dog? Am I the only one? I had someone today, she said my children, because I didn't have children. I wanted to, but the cards didn't play out that way. And a loss of a child, that is a traumatic event. And again, I've worked with people. So why am I talking about trauma if I work with pain? Grief is held in the heart and in the chest, in the lungs, in Chinese medicine, the lungs. And we're going to talk about it. I'm going to do a little breathing exercise with you here at the end so that you can kind of get some comfort in that. And as I mentioned the lungs right now, maybe you've lost someone, you've had grief, and maybe around that time you developed asthma, or maybe around that time you just started this cough. I definitely know that that's happened to me, where I had so much grief held in my chest. And it does involve my relationship with my mother, and it does involve the loss of my dog and all the hurts that I've had. So we're going to talk about that a little bit here today as well. So please put your questions in the Q&A box and also in the chat, and I'll be happy to hear from you about that. And I'm going to find our Facebook page just to make sure I don't miss anybody who's tuning in on there. I think it's happening. All right. So, yes. Oh, Victoria, you are amazing too, woman. I'd love to share your story and your bump in the road. Can I give me permission in the chat? I'll put it there. Okay. I tell you, I'm really blessed because the space that I create in my treatment rooms and in my sessions are really beautiful. And I had a woman come to me recently. So let's just talk about how death can lead to pain, right? Beautiful 30-year-old woman. And she is a mother of 3, and she comes in with back pain, and her nervous system's on high. She's just, I'm busy all the time. I just can't seem to manage. And I'm digging deep because I like to get a trauma history. And she says, my life is good now. And she just starts to tear up, and I just offer love and support. And I say, now, did something happen? And she just starts to tear up because she'd been holding it in for so many years. She was pregnant with her first child. She was 8 months pregnant, 3 weeks away from delivering, and her husband died in a plane crash. So here she was, a grieving widow, having to give birth with her. She had her mother-in-law and her mother there, with grieving the loss of her husband. She was so tense. She was so tight in her pelvis. Think of the stress that happens. When you have that deep sobbing cry and you cannot stop, and you're clenching and you're bracing, and it's here and it's in your pelvis. So much jaw clenching leads to pelvis. So here she is, this beautiful young woman trying to give birth, and the baby wouldn't come out. She was so stressed out and so tense that she had a 3rd-degree tear. And here she is about 7-8 years later. She's remarried. She has 2 more children. She has 3 children, and she's coming for treatment for back pain. And I uncover the hidden trauma and how hard it was for her to deliver the baby. God, this is so depressing. It's so sad. But what happened was, after the session, it was absolutely beautiful because I saw that light come back in her eyes. And we processed her through the delivery, and I had her imagine and bringing her husband there and feeling his presence there. And I'm working with her, and we're doing pelvic floor treatment where we work internally, and literally everything just released, the muscles, everything. And I can't say that the back pain is fully gone. It's pretty close to gone. We need to keep following up with her, but then it's the wiring of the brain that we need to change. And there's one story after another that hits you. I was at I was exercising the other day, and a woman comes in. My husband had a really hard day at work. He does grief counseling, and what happened was a pregnant woman slipped and fell. Her water broke. She slipped and fell, hit the back of her head, and she died. And the baby was born. I mean, this is the reality. And when you're in healthcare and you're in trauma therapy and coaching, I deal with this, and we have to uncover this junk, this crap that lives inside our tissue to really be happy, to feel joyous, to get free. And yes, you might say, I have a good life. I'm good. I'm not holding on too much. And I know who you are watching. But sometimes if you've had a really traumatic childhood, if your parents didn't give you the love you needed, if they couldn't because of their own traumas from their own families, right? It's generational. It gets passed down. But the parents are doing the best that they can. But if they weren't there for you, you develop these belief systems. You develop these attachment styles. And maybe you're seeking love, and maybe you're avoiding love because it was just too much. Maybe you have to people please for everybody else because that was the way that you survived. If your parents were angry, an alcoholic, rageful, you had to please them. You couldn't set them on fire, set them off and get that fire built up in them, or you would be hurt. So maybe then you're that codependent type person that says yes to everybody else. And how we heal that is we start to realize our behavior, shine awareness on that, and then change our behaviors and check in with our body, and then say yes to ourselves, say yes to yourself. And many of us are so dissociated. So dissociated. And I could tell when my hands are on somebody that when they leave, or they think in their heads, they're in their heads, they're busy, 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 busy. Maybe if you pause right now, or you had a rough day, you've got anxiety, and this pinball machine is going off in your head, that is an active nervous system that does need to settle. And oftentimes from 0 to 3 specifically, those deep-rooted attachments come in, whether your parents were there, whether your needs for food, water, shelter, support, love, care. Did you fall in the playground and scrape your knee really bad? Did you have a parent who was there for you? Because if they were not, we develop this shame and doubt and I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough types of behaviors. And then you go into adulthood, and the responsibilities increase. You get married, you buy a home, you build a business, you have a job, and you're stressed out, and you're just in survival mode, running for your life. And then you have a loss of a job, a loss of your health, a loss of a loved one, and you could possibly fall apart. And if you're less resilient, if you're still stuck on these pains and they're just not getting better, then we've really got to do the deep work to get your nervous system on track, to get you into your body. We call that embodiment, to get you to feel safe again. Okay, so let me just peek. Yeah, I did cremate my dog. I just don't do anything with I put the ashes. My dog was a cute little white fluffy American Eskimo, so I bought a puppet that looked like her, and I put her ashes inside the hand puppet. I never look at it. It's up there collecting dust, but yeah, I just need to go spread those ashes. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of toying with the idea of reading these. I mean, you guys can read in the chat maybe, or if you want to put it into all attendees, but yeah, that's pretty harsh. I don't even know that I could say that, but how does that affect you if someone you know was really killed in a violent way or in a car accident? Okay. Boy, this is I'm feeling sad. Ugh. Somatic work, we say, let's just let ourselves feel sad. Let's give ourselves permission. Okay, so again, have you had a great loss? And that's a loss of a loved one, or a relationship has fallen apart, or feared maybe you won't be able to put yourself back together. And grief, it's really, I think it's pretty impossible to fully recover from it. Again, I'm 3 years, I've done EMDR, I've done all kinds of treatments to help me heal, and here it is, it just came up, you know. You can embrace it. You have to move through the agony of it and allow yourselves to just be with it while it washes over. And that's the only way to survive, because we feel we have the worst, you know, if we have the worst ahead of us and we can't get through it, you know, it's going to change you. You are going to be able to move on from it, especially if your nervous system has the capacity to handle that, right? And then you have to start to find out who you're going to become in the wake of it. So you're going to have the rug ripped out from under you. your world's going to change. Just like me, I had a hard time coming into my house. It was a very alone moment. I'd open the door after work and there was not my dog greeting me. And that was really, really hard. And I couldn't ignore it. But if you do ignore it and you push it down, you can function, but your emotional life gets very narrow. It's like you're very guarded. And maybe you're afraid to love again because you're going to lose somebody else again. So these are the things that we have to look at. And it does take so much energy just to cope with the loss. Everything in your brain, it just gets squashed down. And simple, small things can trigger you. And that's where we have to look at what our triggers are and how triggers impact our body, because it could be so self-conscious. So here's what happened to me Sunday. I was cleaning my house. I went to the filing cabinet, that like big filing cabinet you guys all have too. And it's like, it's 2019 and you just got to get rid of some papers. So I was doing that. And then I found my medical records from the car accident. I was happy that day. I was like really happy. And 3 o'clock came, I'm sitting upstairs, ripping up papers and stuff. And I see the letter from the man who rescued me, who had cut off the seatbelt that was strangling me. And I saw his name. And all of a sudden, this wave of emotion had just like caught my chest. And I just had like what I felt was a nervous breakdown. And that was because I just had this huge trigger. I was seeing the medical bills, the medical reports, the letter that he had written me after he was the truck driver. He was driving the opposite direction. He saw that I had rolled my car and he pulled over and he just happened to have a pocket knife and he was able to cut me out. And we're talking 11 years later and I'm still having like panic over it. So call it PTSD if you want, but I have to work on it. We do. We have to reach out for support, and I'll talk about things that we can do with that as well today. And the fact is, you just have to do the work of grieving and you have to let it run its course. And you know how this is. Pain is the agent of change. It allows you to change. It helps you create a new reality. Unless your nervous system gets stuck and shut down and we've got to pull you out. If you've just given up on your health and you're just not moving much, you're not getting out much, you're kind of a shut-in, then we've got to look at your nervous system as a cause for getting better. We have to figure it out and what's going on. And men and women deal with loss totally different. And men tend to want to just move on, make plans, and focus on new things. And women, they kind of want to spend more time in this. They want to remember it. They want to feel it. Maybe if it's someone who died, they want to remember the person who's died. And women tend to want to immerse themselves in their pain and hopefully talk about it with their friend. And then if there's a traumatic death where the person was there, you've talked to them, it was they went to work and then they never returned home. That is very painful, and it's twofold because you have to cope with the trauma and then you have to cope with your grief. And you experience the trauma itself, like that's shocking. And then the loss of that person who's no longer there. And then you're put into this big emotional blender. And that's where they often say, the thoughts get tangled, emotions get confused, and people find themselves just completely stuck. And it's not uncommon for people who've experienced traumatic deaths to get PTSD and then have more intense, prolonged symptoms. So yes, death is hard and losing a loved one, but if you've had a trauma involved with it, and again, I can share stories over and over again, but these are some of the things that you might ask yourself if you're ruminating about it, and you're asking yourself, why did this happen? That's what I did with this car accident for so long. Why did this happen? And it made me be the better person, and it made me who I am here with you today, because the week after my car accident, a woman the same age, the same car, had the same rollover, and she died, but I survived. So then I put a meaning to it. God's not done for me. I have more time here. And when I'm helping people who are really in the deepest spaces, like my client yesterday, she flew in from Canada, she did an intensive, and I can't even tell you guys what we did. It was so amazing, so amazing. She couldn't even lay flat, but by the end she was arcing over, hanging off the table, because she got in touch with these holograms of trauma that get stuck in your body. And then I took her to a naturopathic doctor and we did more work. And that's what happens if you do an intensive with me. We work intensively. It's like a buffet of all types of treatments, and it's almost maybe too much in a day, but it's amazing work. And she left feeling amazing, and she appreciated the work, and it was stuff that she had been stuck on. I thought she just had a jaw and a neck problem, but really she had a lot of childhood trauma, and that's what keeps us stuck, you know? And then, so why did this happen? Who is to blame? If you've lost a loved one, did they suffer this traumatic accident? Could their death have been prevented? Okay, are you in denial? Did they know that they were going to die? Were they afraid? What's the meaning or the reason and the purpose of all of this? So whatever you're struggling with right now, maybe you could look on the bright side and see, and just see. Because if you are struggling from grief and loss, you know, grief is a personal process and it has no time limit. There's no right way to do it. When it's your time, it's your time. It's just such a process. But the fact is, you should just not give up. You have to keep trying and finding a support group, finding a counselor who can help you. I pulled out this great book that I used, is the Grief Recovery Handbook, and it's got great exercises in it. You can find the grief recovery groups, some in some local communities, and they give you worksheets and you do some deep, deep work. So I definitely recommend that. Another thing that helps me with grief is Ignatia Amara, and it is a homeopathic remedy, and you can get it at any health food store, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and you just take a couple of capsules and you put it up under your tongue before, away from brushing teeth, away from food. And let me tell you, this has gotten me through so many breakups and the loss of my dog, and you could take them as often as you need. And you know that nervous upsetness in your chest? Well, what it would do would help calm it and quiet it down. And I'm telling you, it's inexpensive. Ignatia Amara. I like the Highlands brand the best. And then another technique that I like to get done for myself, I'm not trained in it because I can't really use it virtually, is neuro-emotional technique, NET, and they have net remedies, and this is ER 911. I swear by this stuff too. It is also very, 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 very amazing. And you just do like 9 sprays underneath your tongue. Okay, yeah, let me put that. It's Ignatia, Ignatia, Amara, 30C. And then Net Remedies. And this says number 9, ER 911. I love it. It's a really good stuff. And then the Grief Recovery Handbook. Good stuff. You could just peek at it, get it from the library, see if it's something that interests you. It does take work. It's just good to uncover this stuff. It really is just we stuff it, sweep it under the rug. And when you work with me, we uncover it. We set the intention and the direction, and you start to unravel these hidden traumas that do get stuck in the body. And just so you guys know, we do have the small group intensive coming up, and I'm going to put that link in the chat box as well. And it's paintreatmentsthatwork.com/RHT group, because we're going to release hidden traumas. Great. So I want to hear, though, I really want to offer support here in our support group tonight. Will you please share? Just let me know some of the things that you're struggling with. Are there persistent memories of loss that you're still feeling, that every day, every morning you wake up and it's still present? Because here's the deal, symptoms of grief, let's look at this, because some of you are having some health challenges, crying, headaches, difficulty sleeping, questioning your purpose in life, questioning your spiritual beliefs. Maybe you don't believe in a God or higher power anymore. Maybe you feel empty or detached. Maybe you're isolating yourself from friends and family, or you're not even, this was me, I didn't even recognize myself. I was a crazy person. I went to the top homeopathic doctor. I went to a counselor. And again, this was probably the Xanax withdrawal, because I will not ever touch that stuff if you paid me. And I went into the counselor, I was shaking and I was a wreck, and I wouldn't leave her office. And she went over a half hour and she said, next time I will not allow that and I will charge you for that session. You cannot do that again. But I was so vulnerable and falling apart. Okay. But I'm not that way. It really made me resilient. I can get anyone through grief now because after what I went through, again, that's what makes me, I'd say, a very skilled practitioner is I've lived so much of these traumas and experienced it and found the traditional medical model as well as the alternative model. So again, worry, anxiety, frustration, guilt, fatigue, anger, loss of appetite, aches and pains. I talk about the nervous system, the muscle tension, the nervous system controls muscles, and your ears, the shoulders are up to your ears and you're so tense in your upper back and maybe your jaw is clenching. And then all that stress, it's just going to cause problems. So let's look at what loss is. Okay. So we speak of grieving and loss. We often think of death. However, there are other kinds that are pretty prevalent. Like if you say you've had a divorce, you were diagnosed with an illness, and we've talked about that in the hidden traumas of disease. You can look up that a couple weeks ago we did, or loss of a job. And what is particularly surprising is that any change, even positive, can involve loss. Say you're excited, you're going to move from Chicago to Arizona. You're happy to leave the winter weather, right? And you pick up and you leave and you move to Arizona, but you've lost your friends, you've left them. And so you're going to have to grieve that part of you, but love the excitement of the new that's going to happen, right? Maybe you have, you lost a job and you have a lot of anger and a resentment. We're going to talk about the stages of grief, but really any change, you're going to have some kind of loss there. Getting married or promoted or changes that we think of as positive, but they can also be an element of loss. I don't know if you've experienced any of those on your own. And what is grief? It's an inevitable process. It's part of being human. It involves several stages: denial, disbelief, fear, and anger, depression, and finally acceptance. And I'll show you the chart in just a minute. And these stages may overlap or come in a different order. And during this process, it's a myriad of emotions, you guys. We're just so many emotions in grief: confusion, sadness, fear, guilt, hopelessness. And again, if you're feeling any of these right now, I encourage you you can put it in the chat box, and I'd love to hear from you and also support you with that. And they are so intense, and they can get more intensified as we go on, and so let's just pop that on right now. Just going to share the screen with you. And if you look here, these are the stages of grief. Okay, so, and this could be, oh, I have a cancer diagnosis. What? No, denial. That's a natural feeling to release. When I was going through so much grief, and I don't know if you all have seen this, and maybe you haven't, I just kept saying, I can't wait till I get to that acceptance point. I was far from it after losing my loved dog, right? So first we have denial, avoidance, confusion, elation, shock, fear. You just clammied up inside, just clenching, like, what just happened? I don't know how I'm going to get through this. So then you move through the denial phase and you get in touch with anger. And then you're irritable, you're anxious, you're frustrated. Anger is better than denial. Denial is just no awareness. It's checked out. I'm clueless. But then getting in touch. But I get my clients to feel the anger. And you can be nice, but maybe you're clenching your jaw. Maybe you're making a fist. I like my squishies, these little squishy balls and things, because you can really just get some emotion out there. And then it's bargaining. Really trying to figure out meaning, telling your story to everybody. And I can't believe this happened. And you have to just connecting with other people, reaching out. But then you hit a wall, you get depressed, perhaps you're overwhelmed, helpless. You have hostility, you're in flight, you're ready to run, you just don't know what. You're very, very, very disorganized. And then eventually, and I wish this for all of you sooner than later, is you get to the acceptance piece. and you explore options. A new plan is in place, and then you start to move on. For me, it was hiring a coach. I hired my very first coach, and in the Hidden Traumas, Recharge Your Life series, it's coming out November 8th through the 15th. I am interviewing all kinds of experts. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to be exploring and talking about this. And it's incredible how this woman, she had a really bad divorce, and we worked with the same coach. And there was nothing like finding your purpose and your meaning and using your story to help inspire and help others. There's really a power of when you can get out of yourself and you can help others heal. There's huge power and healing benefits in that. And I did an interview with Denise Dominguez, and you'll be seeing that she had to overcome a narcissistic relationship in a marriage, finally had to have the courage to accept that it's not working, and she left, and now she's a woman's empowerment coach. So all great things. So looking at this chart, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Those are the stages that we need to work through. And just know you will get there. It just takes time. All right. Claire, changed country, and then the daughter that we moved to be with has said we ruined her life and doesn't really want a relationship. Alcoholic boyfriend, husband had cancer, last 3 operations and radiation. Daughter was very distant, still doesn't want to engage much. We have a big fight, lots of drama. So here we are in a new country with no one. Depressed, yes, but better. And been wanting to run, yes, but have slowly accepted this situation. Clara, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So have you worked yourself through a little bit of those stages? And I hope that this is helping you. You are not the first person who's told me this. I did have someone who moved across country to live with their grandchildren, and they never see them. And they're grieving the loss of their life, of where they moved from. And it's like, am I going to move back? Don't feel trapped. Don't feel trapped. You do have the power. You do have the power. Yeah. And then I worked with cancer. I worked with one of the top naturopathic doctors here, Dr. Daniel Rubin in Scottsdale, Arizona. I worked in his practice for several years, and I saw all kinds of cancer. And the only way to treat cancer, it seems sometimes, is to cut. The traditional medicine is to cut and sew, cut and sew. So let me literally take out all your organs. You have a Whipple surgery, they call it, for pancreatic cancer. I've had to help people deal with this. They've had their organs taken out, cut open, organs out, and they put them back in. Do you think that you'll ever really feel completely the same again? And again, it is your resilience and your capacity to handle this change. And it does stem back into your childhood and your attachment style. Do you feel safe and secure? Are you anxious? Are you ambivalent? Are you nervous energy? So we have to look at this, because that will help you determine how you're going to pull yourself out of these challenging situations. Okay. All right. And then, how can I best heal after a loss? There's no one right way to grieve. Everyone's experience of grief is going to be unique. It's suffering. No matter how you put it, it is suffering. And it's always very individualized. Okay. So I want you to know that no matter how much pain you feel, you will survive your loss. And you can talk to others. If you have cancer or a loved one has cancer, please go find a support group, a positive one, where you can share. If there's a grief group, a bereavement group, there's lots of those. Go find a group. And you don't even have to say anything. You can just go and sit there and be with people who have experienced it. I had an accident club. I had a really bad accident club. They don't have one. That's why I've started doing the work that I'm doing, because I used to be on the floor crying in tears 10 years ago when I was recovering. I woke up from a coma. I'm the therapist. I'm not supposed to be the patient. I became the patient. And I grieved the loss of my body that was unbroken. And I've had to go back, and I've had to be with me, who I was right before that car accident happened. And I can feel my body whole again. And that is inside you. And these are the types of techniques we do to help renegotiate the trauma. And that's what we're going to be doing in the Release Hidden Traumas group. So I'm just going to put that again in the chat box if you're interested. It's a low price point entry so we can work together. You know, again, I do intensives. People fly to me. I bring in a naturopathic doctor. We do intensive treatments. We help unravel all the pain and the emotions of your body. But this is a quick 4-week intensive. We're going to meet every week for 4 weeks. We're going to do 2 hours. We're all going to be connected together, and you'll each get your individual turn. And then when you're getting help, you help others, and others will help support you so you don't have to do this alone. It's going to be an amazing program. Okay. So again, you are going to survive your loss no matter how much pain. And emotional ups and downs, you guys know this, they're a normal part of any grieving process. But here's the trick. In order to get past those hard, difficult feelings, you have to experience them. And that's the work that I do, helping people with pain and trauma, is we've got to get out of our head, get out of the guilt, the shame, the resentment, all the stories you tell yourself. That doesn't matter. If we work together, I will gently, nicely interrupt you to get out of story, to start feeling so that you can heal. It's really important to do that. And we might try to take drugs. Addictions happen like I did. Let's just take Xanax to get through it. I was taking it to sleep. I didn't want to take Ambien or anything like that. And I got so quickly addicted. I will never touch that stuff again. Trudy Scott is right with that. So again, you can't try to speed up the process, because if you do, you don't quite heal whole. You think you do. I'm going to push through, but it does get trapped in the body, and it can show up years later in pain, and then the grief and the asthma. We're talking about allergies, upper respiratory infections, heart disease can all be contributed, even cancer, to grief and forgiveness issues in the heart. So your grieving, it can be incomplete. You won't have the energy to deal with the present if you're still stuck in the past. And sometimes it's as if the past is just playing itself over and over again every day, and a radio station in your head. I'm guilty of it. I have it. I do hear it often. So again, we've got to move forward from the past and do our best to be as present as possible. And if you followed me, I teach you the basic skill of orienting. You can try this right now. You're tuning in, you're connecting with me. I want you to pause, and I want you to feel the seat, the chair underneath you. Feel your feet touching the ground. This helps get you into the present moment. It helps get you into your body. I noticed a sense of softening when I felt the chair under me. And then you can let your eyes wander around the room and just find one thing pleasant. One thing that catches your eye around the room, not something that's triggering. There might be the stack of papers over there on the table that you've got to get done. Ignore those. Look for something pleasant. And what do you notice in your body? That's orienting. Okay. Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot. So that'll help bring you into the present. We don't want to be living in the past. Literally, though, I see it every day. It's living in your tissue sometimes. And when you've got all that pain, it can be trapped up in there. We've got to release it. And then care for yourself like you would a friend. Get rest. Eat well. Even if you aren't hungry, find something pleasurable that you can eat to keep your blood sugar stable, because if your blood sugar's off, then you're going to also have some mood issues that'll impact you. And exercise, even if you don't want to. Get in a pool, get in a hot tub, start moving around. Go for a walk in your neighborhood. If you can't get out of the chair and move very well, put on some music and just start dancing. Get your ribs moving and your lungs moving. And sometimes, you all know this, very strong, independent woman, especially that I work with, is having trouble asking for help. So if you can ask for help and support, that will be the best, because you don't have to face this alone. And again, we have the release hidden traumas group of 4 that we're going to be starting as an intensive here after this series. And I'd love to work with you. And if you're interested, it's $9.97, and the link is in the chat box. Okay. So again, writing about your loss, that's something that you can do. Just grieving, and you don't have to send it to anybody. You can burn it if you want, but just journaling, not correcting your spellings, don't worry about your handwriting. Get it out of you and onto the paper, and you'll find that you start problem solving and helping yourself. It's really, really cool. And then if you have a grief or a loss, after my accident, I loved the quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step," because boy, it felt impossible. It felt impossible. So I had a necklace charm with it. And then I had a necklace charm that had a tree. And I imagined rooting down and that I am safe and I am strong. And that helped me. So, traditional rituals, there's no right or wrong way to mourn a loss. People have private rituals that can help you in a personal way. Then there's the traditional rituals of, say, a funeral, wearing black, lighting candles, celebrating that anniversary. We're coming up into the holidays, my favorite time of year. Not so much, but that the seasons, just the fall leaves changing, the weather changing, it reminds me of memories of childhood. And sometimes that thoughts of Thanksgiving, thoughts of Christmas can really amplify our feelings of loss and grief. So just be patient with yourself, make plans, keep yourself busy, don't isolate, don't stay alone, so that you can make it through the challenges of the holidays. All right. You can create a scrapbook, make a playlist, a CD with all the fun, beloved songs that were good, that were memorable, that will boost you up. You can plant a tree in honor of someone. You can make a donation to a charity. Visit the cemetery. Hold on to an object that loved one treasured, and just feel their presence there with you. Visit a special place that had emotional meaning. And again, we want to be able to express, and I will encourage you, if you're at the movies and you're seeing a sad movie, don't hold it in, release it. Anytime an emotion comes out, identify it, feel it, and see if you can just kind of release it. And maybe your chest is so anxious and feeling full and anxious right now, but just bring it out to the periphery. Feel whatever you're feeling. If it's hip pain, if it's back pain, knee pain, feel it, but then see if you can send it out of your body, out to the periphery. It's a really, really cool experience there. Now, again, there are oftentimes gifts in losses, so you have to create your own meaning. What did this loss give me? Okay. And when do I need to seek out help? When am I having so much trouble overcoming grief? When do I need help? And if you are depressed and you're not carrying out your normal routines, and you no longer want to do social activities, you're depressed, you're sad, you blame yourself, or you feel guilty, or you feel like you did something wrong, or that you could have prevented the death, that's important. You have to feel like you might have feel like you lost a sense of purpose, or you might feel like life isn't worth living anymore, and wish that sometimes this is the ultimate flight. I wish I were dead. And I know many of you who are struggling in pain tell me this. You wish you could just die so you don't have to feel the pain. And I'm sorry that the doctors and medical help hasn't come to help you find the root cause. But like I said, I help uncover the root causes, because these are those hidden traumas, the hidden traumas of all the things that have happened in your life. Now, if you came in to see me and I ask you, hey, tell me about your childhood. Did you ever fall out of a tree or fall off a horse? Or, oh, well, I was 8 and I had to have kidney surgery. But that was 30 years ago. That all can be held in the body. And I'm only telling you this because I see it day in and day out. I really, really do. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the lungs in Chinese medicine. The lungs are, they're responsible for taking clean, oxygen-rich air and blood into the body, and breathing out that harmful carbon dioxide. So we breathe in and we breathe out the toxins. But let me ask you, if you were to check into your chest and your rib cage right now, how are you feeling? Are you breathing? Oh, how are you breathing? I digress. Victoria responded. Victoria, I'll share you. She gave me permission. Victoria lost her breast, but she has the most beautiful breasts now because she opted for tattoos. So Victoria is an amazing woman who was it triathlon? She goes bike riding. She lost her breast. She basically wanted children. She was going through the process. She was having twins and was diagnosed with breast cancer. So here she is, the most resilient, strongest woman, raising two beautiful girls, and she's going through breast cancer treatment. And you know what? She was riding her bike, she was getting out and doing races. She was incredible. And she was healing, and she healed, and the cancer came back. And she went through another round of chemo, and now she is just feisty and bolstering and strong as ever. And she's resilient. She's a tough woman, and she has a strong mindset. And I believe her book, you can look for it on Amazon, it's A Bump in the Road, you know, a tiny little bump in the road. And here she was, and she's still resilient and she's strong. You know, and I often project, sometimes I know if I had cancer diagnosis, I kind of can't help but think that there's this feeling of when's it going to return? When's it going to return? And we have to really feel safe in that moment. And when I learned with my car accident, it wasn't my time to die. I came so dang close, brain injury, near spinal cord injury on a ventilator. I came so close, and I brushed death. And now I'm not afraid to die. I really don't fear that at all. I learned, my belief is I don't have control. When I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. But when you have children, it amplifies it. And Victoria is such an amazing story of strength and hope. So look up Victoria Kramer on Amazon. She published her own book. She wrote it herself. It's small. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. Yeah. So shallow breathing. Been working on breathing a lot now. Lung and heart companions. Yeah. Okay. So, so yes, so they take in the clean air and they get out the junk, the bad air. And they're responsible for taking in new and letting out the old, right? The constant cycle of life. So let's just practice inhaling in the new and releasing the old. So let's breathe in the new. Intention of releasing the old. And so the lungs are the organ that take qi from the world, the energy of the world, and bring it back in, according to Chinese medicine, breathing it back into the body. And the lungs govern the qi, our energy. It gets it flowing. You can literally do Kundalini yoga and do a whole energetic shift in your body and change your energy levels and just become high, just like really feeling good because you've gotten oxygen into our bodies. And that's something I often tell people, maybe check in with your breathing. If you're only breathing up here, it's not enough. You got to go deeper and deeper and into your belly. Okay, so the stronger your lungs, the more qi you're able to take in and distribute to the rest of your body. Okay, so again, oftentimes we feel grief in our heart, in our chest. And if we can uncover and get through to that grief and pull out that grief and release it, lots of times healing can really happen. Right? And just, it's important when you're grieving just to acknowledge it, acknowledge how you're feeling. And it's common to have these emotions, right? It's associated with the lungs. That's what it is. So we have to release it through deep breathing exercises. Okay, so I want to guide you through one today that you can practice. And I want you to inhale completely into the lungs, bringing that qi, that life force into your lungs. I want you to hold it for the count of 5. And then when you exhale, I want you to exhale it with an S sound like a snake. All right? So I'm going to guide you through this, and you can do it with me. So ready? I want you to inhale, a complete inhale, breathing in as deep as you can. And now hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. And do it again. I want you to do it 3 times. So we're going to inhale, hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now when you breathe, I want you to breathe forward. I want you to breathe out to the side and breathe back behind you, feeling your rib cage expand 3-dimensionally. Inhale, big, strong, deep breath. Hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Yeah. And so also the color associated with lungs is white. So I want you to envision white light. And you can make a little note of this, put it in your phone to remind you to breathe tomorrow, Phaedra style. Okay. So, and again, if you're grieving the loss of a person, an animal, maybe it was a job you loved, I want you to imagine a happy time or a funny situation you shared with them. So close your eyes and imagine this beautiful memory of them that was so happy, funny. And this will cause you to smile and feel love. And this will use the energy to help heal the lungs. Okay, so take this love energy after a nice deep breath, bringing it in, but also as you breathe in, I want you to imagine this big, bright, white light going into your lungs, forward, back, and to the side, and holding this white light in there, filling up your lungs. And exhale, sending loving energy down into the lungs as much as possible, getting it deep, deep, deep down there. Yeah, and you can even exhale with an S. Yeah. So what you can do if someone you love is grieving and you're not attached to that person, but you're feeling for them. You know, you might be feeling like you're walking on eggshells around them. What can you do? First, you have to listen to them. And know that it is not about you. You need to follow their lead if they're mourning. Right? It's good to acknowledge it. Give them acknowledgement. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that you're hurting. I'm here for you. Offer to help them. Give them practical help. Offer to help them with meals, picking their child up from school. I met a woman who was a widow and she wrote an amazing book about it. I can't remember the name of it. She said, and I sat with her at Thanksgiving last year, and she said, I just wanted someone to come volunteer to clean my toilets. The last thing I wanted to do was to clean my house. So offer something practical for them and be honest with them. Let them know. You know, it's comforting and easy to deal with, and it's a direct way to cut through the messiness of grief. Just being honest with them. Let them know how you feel. They don't know. They're in shock right now. Okay? And then you can send them a letter, a card, a text, just to let them know you're thinking of them. Because when they're alone, that's when the brooding gets even worse and it gets more complicated. It's really hard to overcome. All right. So this is going to be time for some questions. You got some for me? Did you like the series so far? Next week, we are going to talk about the hidden traumas of debt. It is real. Okay. Well, I just again want to invite you all, if you're interested, we do have the Release Hidden Traumas intensive group. It's coming up. I threw this together because basically what's happening is we're bringing up all of this disease, death, divorce, and people are writing me with, you know, just kind of feeling unsettled with what's going on. But I promise you, these hidden traumas can be stuck, causing that physical and emotional pain, and that needs to be released in order for us to heal. It really, really does. And so I see it every day, and one story overcomes another, and it's just so overwhelming. But if we can work through the grief and get to that stage of acceptance, put meaning in why did this happen to me? What did I learn from this? And take those lemons and make lemonade. You can really make a difference. And if you're grieving right now, I know it's hard and I know it's challenging. And I also know with the right support and the right help, you can pull through.